Ambassador Chowdhury, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. We are thrilled to have you on this series talking about male allies. You are a godfather of this movement, so we're really looking forward to hearing about your experience pushing this movement forward. But I want to let you introduce yourself first before we launch into questions.
Well, people would already know my name because you addressed by that. I'm Ambassador Anwarul Chowdhury. I am a former ambassador of Bangladesh to the United Nations, former Under Secretary General of the United Nations, and I had the unique, if I may say, privilege and honor of being the initiator of the conceptual breakthrough that resulted in a decision by the Security Council, which ultimately led to the adoption of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325. Other than that, I had been working with civil society, particularly women's NGOs, for a long time uh, to, to work for the implementation of the platform coming out of the Beijing 1995 conference on women.
Wonderful. Thank you for that introduction. Well, we wanted to start off by asking, as the godfather of this movement, what was it like introducing women, peace, and security? And what were your expectations of the movement?
Well, I wouldn't say it is yet to be a movement. I would say my role was to really the issue, the agenda, WPS agenda. My objective was to create awareness, generate support, generate realization that women, peace, and security are very closely connected and mutually supportive. In March 2000, I had the turn to become the president of the Security Council. And I thought this is my moment. And I proposed in the working calendar of the month that on the 8th of March, we will adopt a resolution on connecting women's role in peace and security. Everybody was not at all favorable. Begin with the thought that it is a soft issue, should belong to the General Assembly, not to the Security Council. And that declaration has this very purposeful sentence that peace is inextricably linked with equality between women and men. And it affirmed equal and full participation of women with men at all decision-making levels. But I think it is always an uphill task to member, because when it was proposed in March 2000, before that, Security Council was in existence for 55 years. And it found women only helpless victims of wars and conflicts. So that was the mindset change. But even now, the women's contribution to peace and security is still unrecognized, undervalued, and underutilized. So as a part of humanity, we have the men and the power decision makers, people in power have failed to realize that.
Well, I want to ask, why do you think it's important that women are included in peace and security processes?
I believe that after 55 years of neglecting women's role and contribution, it was high time for the Security Council. But also we should remember that women are equal half of humanity. We cannot ignore, even marginalize 50% of humanity if we want to really make progress in the area of peace and security. We have to, and we have seen also time and again that women bring in a new perspective, a new way of looking at things, a balance of vision and objectivity. And I believe that women think of good of their societies, how their children and grandchildren can have education, be healthy, and live in a peaceful society, community. And that is why they always think of a broader agenda for their societies. Men always think of power sharing, particularly post-conflict countries I have seen. Men are always thinking of bringing in their uh, interests to become more powerful in the process, in the post-conflict arrangements. But women always think how we can go ahead with the peace that we have achieved. We must make best effort to retain and maintain that peace. I believe that participation rather than prevention or protection. Why I say that if we have equal participation of women in all decision making, no protection, no prevention would be necessary.
Well, could you tell us, I'm sure you have a lot of stories, but could you tell us a story of where you've seen women's participation make an impact?
One very stark example of women's contribution being recognized was 2011 Nobel Peace Prize given to three women, two from Liberia and one from Yemen, for their contribution. And I am so delighted that this is the first Nobel Peace Prize citation which has mentioned so specifically a resolution of the United Nations. It mentions about 1325, and it says that neither democracy nor lasting peace is possible without women's participation. I was very involved in West Africa peace missions in 2000 and 2001. So there I am, my I salute the women in West Africa, particularly through the Mano River Network, Women's Network. And that was wonderful in Liberia, in Guinea, in Sierra Leone. They have, and finally they got the leaders to come together to sign the agreement. And Lema was the leader of that initiative, and she still is. And I think this is the wonderful example, and I cite that in many of my speeches, saying how in their sort of humble way, they have been determined like stone walls. I have seen, like in Kosovo, I have seen myself. I was also um, leading the Security Council delegation to Kosovo, the first ever delegation. And I found that the women were not being allowed to come in. So I met with them at the middle of the night almost in my hotel because the Secretary General Special Representative didn't put their meeting with me on the formal program. And excuse is that you are too busy. And I said, no, I will meet with them. And that meeting has energized Kosovo Women's Network in a big way. They have recorded that history, and I believe that that championship of men is very important. But also, we should not forget that women bring in their humble way, but very determined and powerful way, the community level uh, peace, maintenance of peace and security. And that is very important. We may not be engaged in war or engaged in a post-conflict peace building, but all of our countries need such element of equanimity and perspective to bring in, to make our societies more peaceful.
Well, following on to that, you've been a champion for women's equality for decades now. Speaking to other males that are maybe in this field or not in this field, what would you tell them to do? How can males make a difference in supporting this work?
Well, um, uh, I believe that uh, the women's equality have been brought to this level. Inequality has been brought to this level, and equality has been sort of stonewalled. And I think this is also because of men's um, uh, unwillingness to share power. The power in society, they believe and they have grown to believe that, or they live to believe that this only belongs to them, and that is something that has to change. That mindset, equality should be taken as natural and not as something men are giving to women. If equality is important, equality is beneficial to humanity, we have to accept at all levels and irrespective of who the woman is in receiving that equality. Equality for women is fundamental. It is their fundamental right. Nobody gives them. It is inherent. Also, I find that if you ask me, I will say two things: misogyny and patriarchy are the dual scourges of humanity, which is creating biggest obstacles to human progress. And I think that is very important. And uh, that that challenge will continue, and we have to sort of energize ourselves uh, to put a stop. Tell us again and again that you are not uh, uh, looking into the interest of the world. You're looking into your narrowly focused interests. You are uh, clinging on to your power, and that is very important. And I believe that that is why we need, from a very early stage of life, in the family, in the parents, in the communities, in the schools, to bring in the perspective of equality. There should be, it's a long process that it becomes reality. And we should start it with our families. As parents, as grandparents, it is our responsibility. Also, I think one bigger challenge I face these days is there is a rollback and backlash from the conservatism, from fundamentalism into women's equality process. Whatever gains we have made in a very humble way, but it is still being challenged. Men have to decide and energize ourselves. We should take every aspect, because we cannot say peace and security. So we'll talk about military taking care of women and equality of women and given and sort of control sexual harassment and abuse. No, it has to be everywhere, in the corporate sector, in the education sector, in the business sector, everywhere. Peace and security are all interconnected with the other dimensions of life. Men should understand what they're talking about, whether they're really an open-minded, equality supporting person, or they are just doing it either for political purposes or sort of cosmetic purposes or for just propaganda purposes. We have to remember that. In my family, I have stopped color coding boys and girls, like blue for boys and pink for girls. I have said, no, you can wear anything, any color. This is important. I'm telling my grandchildren every day. I say, how is it going? And sharing with them little stories, anecdotes about women's equality and how they should treat each other, their brothers and sisters together. So this is a long road, but I think once it starts, it will gain momentum.
As our last question, you mentioned that this is the 20th anniversary of UN Security Council Resolution 1325. Would just love to hear what has surprised you the most about the progress. You've talked a little bit about this, but what surprised you the most of the progress that has been made or the lack of progress?
To begin with, and again, as I said before, I salute the civil society organizations, particularly women's organizations, which have been really at the forefront of the movement, if I may say now, movement for implementing 1325. I think that that is a major satisfaction to me. I now find that these four numerals, 1, 3, 2, 5, have energized women's organizations all over the world. This has opened a new door for them, new entry for them into the global political security situation, because now they can challenge the security policymakers by saying, remember 1325. We have also over the years, we had about, including 1325, 10 Security Council resolutions. All these 10 resolutions gives us what I call 1325 package. And that package should be available to all decision makers everywhere. And there should be a clear way of uh, elucidating that what is in there in this resolution and how it relates to their working. Civil society I would also say they have in number of countries, the national action plan is not yet there, as you know. It's a big disappointment for me and many others that not even 50% of UN membership has yet prepared their national action plan. 20 years have gone by and we have not yet done. And I believe that national action plan is the engine which will drive the implementation agenda at the country level. The beauty of the national action plan is that it is a nationally adopted but globally monitored, because nobody can say, if we say your national plan is not working, they cannot tell us that um, it is none of your business. I find country X is not doing so well. How can we help them, or how we can prevent deterioration of women's equality in their country? This is still a very disappointing part of the implementation. The other disappointment, if I may say, is the disconnect between the General Assembly and the Security Council. Why I say, you have read with the Sustainable Development Goals. Goal 5, wonderfully articulated, but no mention of 1325. It is very important for that disconnect to be gapped. Goal 5 looks empty when I find that 1325 is not mentioned there. I also find that um, I was very hopeful then when in 2000 we adopted 1325. I said this is the time for us to elect a woman Secretary General. That didn't happen. 20 years have gone by. We have 9 Secretaries General, but no sign. But we should not focus on merit or competencies only. We should also look into the balance in decision making, power sharing, meaning that equality of position. So if UN has taken the decision to have 50-50 parity in its top members, the head of that office should also be 50-50. I say that for next 10 secretaries general, we should always have women, so that we balance the mistake we made in the past 75 years. And I believe that Secretary General has a special role in the implementation. This is another area of my disappointment. Secretary General and senior management has a very important role in the implementation of 1325. Secretary General, why? Because I believe Secretary General has the convening power, has the moral authority of the world. If he writes to the heads of state or heads of government saying, what is happening in your country for the National Action Plan? We have only 80 countries doing that. We need yours also to join those. So Secretary General should say that you are obligated by charter to act on this decision. And that is what I believe Secretary General should do. And then another big disappointment is the sexual harassment and abuse by UN peacekeepers. I wish that on this anniversary, we make a far more objective to give real teeth to zero tolerance policy. These are the thoughts which come to me again and again, and I think this is both. I'm energized by civil society action and energy. I'm also disappointed by the big gaps still waiting. We always say that peace is not possible without development. And we also say development is not achievable without peace. But to that I add, but neither peace nor development is conceivable without equality of women. I say that whenever Secretary General meets with the uh, leader from a country, his talking point should have 1325 National Action Plan as the first point of order. So let's hope this 20th anniversary gives us an opportunity, and let's hope also that on this occasion, men should be more determined to support this WPS agenda as equal partners with women. This is good for humanity. This is nobody's individual agenda. That feminism is a smart policy. It is inclusive. It is it involves. It is participatory, and it leaves no one behind. So that is very important, and it is not something about men against women or women against men. It is for all of us. I am proud to be a feminist, and I believe all of us need to be.
Well, that is a great place to stop the interview. I want to say thank you so much on behalf of Mobilizing Men as Partners for Women, Peace, and Security for your decades of work promoting this movement. There's no doubt that it wouldn't have gotten as far without your support. So thank you for taking the time to speak with us, and we look forward to continuing to work with you.